Ladies and gentlemen, it's a packed AZ Wildcats podcast today. We have Arizona transfer out of Harvard, Evan Nelson off the top of the show. We got KJ Lewis potentially, allegedly, allowed by the rules to return. Who knows? We're going to discuss all that and more on the AZ Wildcats podcast today. Drink your water, leave a like, don't go anywhere.
Welcome on into the AZ Wildcats podcast. I'm your host, Damon Farrell. He is Kevin Thomas. We are live from beautiful downtown Phoenix here on a lovely Tuesday afternoon, I guess, Kevin?
Yeah, and of course, literally afternoon, 12:01.
It is, yeah, I know. That's why it always gives me a little bit of trouble off the start of the show because I don't know whether to say morning because it's been morning the entire time previous to this. Now it's afternoon, technically.
And we do a college podcast, so like probably half our listeners are just waking up for the first time. You know what I mean? So
it's a good point as well.
It's morning somewhere, Damon. So good morning.
Good morning to you. Good afternoon to those of you that have been up for quite a while. And of course, we have a packed show for you today. We got Evan Nelson that we're going to bring in right off the top. Also, we're talking a little bit of KJ Lewis speculation seen in Tucson, maybe. As well spotting. As we're as teased yesterday, we're going to talk a little bit more about the fallout of softball season ending. But Kevin, we'd be remiss if we kept the people waiting any longer. So why don't we go ahead and bring on Arizona transfer and soon to be Harvard graduate, Tucson native, Sal Point alum. I could keep going all day, but we got Evan Nelson on the show. Evan, thank you so much for taking this time out of. I guess this is your afternoon over there in Boston.
Yeah, definitely. No, thank you, Damon, and thank you, Kevin. Nice to be on with you guys.
Certainly, good to have you here, Evan, and good to talk some, Arizona basketball with, one of the players that, figures to be a key piece on next year's roster. If you're in the chat here, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, please, if you haven't done so already. But Evan, I think, we just got to start it off here. And I want to say also as well, right off the top, shout out our guy, Justin Spears, who wrote a great article on Evan in mid-April range for the Arizona Daily Star. You can find it at Tucson.com, where I'm, sourcing a lot of this information, and Justin does great work, obviously. But Evan, I just wanted to start off by asking you, like, what did it mean to you? What did Arizona basketball mean to you as a kid from Tucson growing up? Obviously, it's the big show in town. Like, now you're, going to be on the team. But what did it mean to you just as a kid?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, watching Derek Williams play, watching games on TV, even watching guys like Nico come to school who I'd played against pretty much growing up, and Josh Green, it was always a dream of mine to play there. Anytime we got to play like summer tournaments there, and it was Sean Miller was coaching, like I was trying to play my best. Trying to show out so, I could have the opportunity to play there. And there's also a yearly Martin Luther King tournament that's played on McHale as well. So anytime I stepped on that floor, I was like, all right, I got to have my best game. And yeah, I mean, like I said, it was always a dream, and to have it become a reality is surreal, and I'm hyped as hell to get out there and to play and show what I could do.
And you say that every time you stepped out there on that McHale floor, it was like you had to have your best game. I don't know if I'm breaking news to you, Evan. You're going to be stepping on that floor a lot next year. So can you talk a little bit about what it means to play for your hometown after being literally as far away as possible, right? At Harvard in Boston. So what is that like coming home? What does it mean to you to be closer to home base?
Yeah. Well, like you said, I mean, getting away from home, and I think bringing some of that Tucson grit. I remember being in the summer before I had any college offers, like working out outside on an outside court, like in 110 sweltering heat. And that's like a different type of grit that it builds within you, and just determination and toughness. So I hope to just bring that kind of identity to the team. um, I know that last year it was like gritty boys, which I like. So taking that up a notch, and yeah, just hell, you're a warrior out there on the court, and I think you definitely play better when the city is literally like watching you, and my family will be in the stands, and people who went to South Point or I grew up with will be out there watching too. So no, it's gonna be awesome.
You mentioned your family coming into town, and I did want to ask you. It's a real thing with athletes when you're back at the home court. People want to see you play. So how many
Yeah,
tickets you giving out this year, Evan? Over under 1,000 tickets.
bro. I mean, I don't know what it's gonna be like. However many they're gonna give me, I'm gonna have to figure out a divvy system. But let's see. Well,
The
let's say
Harvard
under.
math is coming into play here, folks.
Yeah, let's say under. Let's say under.
It's gonna be one of the most popular tickets in town, that's for sure. Getting to see Evan
That's a
Nelson
hot
play
ticket.
at McHale Center. But Evan, I did I know it's a little cliche, but I feel like I want to get back to that point where you're talking about like how it just makes you want to push that extra amount, playing in front of all these people that and people that you feel that you represent to an extent, right? So like, can you just talk a little bit more to like how much it means to you to be a part of this program and just win basketball games in Tucson?
Yeah. Um, Seeing the team play. I mean, even making it to the Sweet 16. You know, um, I when I was getting recruited on my staff is like a bunch of Duke guys. Coach Amager, he's a Duke guy. The assistant under him, he's a Duke guy. So it's like, all right, I'm talking stuff like, no, 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 Arizona's gonna win. Um, and I don't know. You don't want to say Duke of the West, but like, no, Arizona's just an equal program in my eyes, and obviously to all of our eyes. Arizona's a blue blood, I think, and so when I thought about it, coaches had maybe you were like, hey, you should maybe like think about going to Duke, and I'm like, no, 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 no. As soon as Arizona's in the mix, like that's where I'm gonna go. That's like my main goal. So what does it mean? I mean, I don't think a lot of kids from Tucson are given the opportunity to play. We've had good players. I think of guys like Grant Whiteman on this team this past year, but even guys like Sean Elliott who were from the city and wore the jersey, and hell, he made it all the way to the NBA. But like Choi, a product. There's got to be CDO. This is a guy that's from CDO. I forget his name. But there's a couple of guys, but none of them really, I think, given the unique opportunity to play as much as I could, given if I seize the situation. Um, so like, and it's my last year of college basketball, so I'm gonna give it my all, work as hard as I can every day, and just like literally leave it all out on the court. Um, I think innately I have a leadership ability, and I know we've got 5 pretty good young guys coming in, or actually probably more than that. But new guys mixed with the guys that are already there, like I'm gonna fit in really easily, and just help. I mean, I hope the guys know, but like help them realize that Arizona basketball. I mean, you look in McHale, you look up at the names on the wall that are, their jerseys are retired, or you look at the banners, Elite Eights, Final Four, and that championship banner. And since I pretty much was getting recruited, um, Coach Lloyd and Coach Benson, they're like Final Four, Final Four, Final Four. Like we're competing with Houston. We want to go to Final Four. We think you can help us, and so I believe that. I believe our team has that potential, and it's going to take something that I personally haven't done yet before. Going as hard as I can and giving it all to basketball, but that's what I'm prepared to do.
You discuss, being prepared to do whatever it takes to win and whatnot, and also a little bit going into your recruitment. Did you discuss what your role would be with this team, and could you elaborate on that if that was something that was discussed in your recruitment?
Yeah. Talked about it a little bit. I don't think I've really said much because, things can be said, but then, okay, what if I don't play as well? So like I don't, I don't believe that if I'm promised something and I don't, work for it, or I don't end up doing as well as I should, that, I should still have that. But, no, what I can bring is, I can shoot the ball very well off the ball or on the ball, primary ball handler, if need be. I love to pass defensively. I can get it done. So I'm sure that, yeah, helping out on the ball, helping JB out, um, you know, being whether we need like a traditional floor general, an extension of the coach on the court, or, playing more off the ball, stretching the defense out, being ready to shoot, or being ready to attack on closeouts, make decisions out of pick and roll, uh, get the young guys involved out in the open court. I think that's what it will be. Um, I mean, I'm definitely not. I don't think I'm going to start, but let's say high impact in whatever minutes that I'm going to get.
One thing that we've noticed with recruits, whether it's international, high school transfer like yourself, when they come to Arizona and they talk about Tommy Lloyd, they talk about how excited they are to play under him, right? So when you look at what he's done at Arizona so far, what excites you the most about playing in a Tommy Lloyd system? And honestly, since you have the basketball IQ to speak to it and you've been recruited by him, can you kind of elaborate a little bit on specifically what that is to our fans at home who might not really understand like what the Tommy Lloyd system looks like from the player's perspective?
Yeah. No, I mean, it looks, let me tell you, as somebody who loves to pass, who loves scoring, it looks like a lot of fun to play in. Just a lot of ball screen action. Reading that back defender, hitting who it's going to be Krivas now. So hitting Krivas in the rolls, in the short rolls, or um, hitting Tobe in the short rolls and letting them work, playing fast, playing up tempo. And man, the first time Coach Lloyd and we talked, man, I mean, first let me reel that in. I mean, he's what, the highest win percentage in his first 4 years in any coach in college basketball. So like, he knows how to win. All right, so whatever he's saying, I'm going to trust him. And whoever he's telling me to like pass to, or like this guy's going to be the guy, I'm like, yes, coach. Um, and coming from Gonzaga, and I think he's built off that Gonzaga ball screen continuation, and just made it more unpredictable, hard to guard. Uh, you look at JB. I mean, these guys are having high assists per game, so you really get to share the ball in that offense, in that system. And I mean, he told me like an autopilot, I should be able to, or whoever's playing should be able to rack up the assists. So um, if it's going to work that well in autopilot, and then you get a good driver in the driver's seat, I can only imagine what's going to happen. But no, it's going to be a lot of fun to play in offensively.
I'm going to let Damon ask his next question, but I loved hearing you compare it to a car because you don't know this, but Damon does.
Yep.
I compared last year's Arizona basketball team to a car, made every person a part of the car.
And now
like
we have a
JB was the
driver.
steering wheel, KJ was the engine. Now we can figure out a new engine, get a new engine in this thing, and then we got a driver in Evan Nelson. I love this, Damon. You can continue. I'm just going to check out for the rest of the time because I peaked. It's over for me. I'm good.
It does fit too seamlessly, and I've been I've been like just shaking my head at the corniness of Kevin's analogy,
He hated it.
And now it's like it's never been more on top than it is
Verified.
right in this exact moment.
It's got the check mark now.
It does
it's got
have
the Evan Nelson stamp.
It does have the stamp, but
via Tommy Lloyd. I'm good. I'm valid.
I just wanted to talk, Evan, about your journey from Harvard for a half second, because it was kind of unconventional when I was doing research just on your backstory, your college career in particular, because you join on, COVID happens, there's a weird Ivy League rule, right, where if you graduate, you're not allowed to play, and that's what has ultimately led for, you've only played 3 college seasons, and for your 4th year of eligibility, you're transferring out of the Ivy League, correct? And then
Yep.
now, you also tore your Achilles in the middle of another season. So, like, just how has this long, strenuous journey been for you? It's been kind of unconventional, but it's landed you in this spot now where you get to, represent Arizona basketball. So, it's, you can't say it's all for naught, but definitely a different journey than most people take in their collegiate careers.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think basketball and sports, but namely basketball, man, the things that I've learned from it have just been like persistence, and always when you get knocked down, and just keep working and keep doing the best that I can every day, and always controlling what I can control. So like you said, coming in COVID, like who could have predicted COVID? Nobody. Who could have told me that like Harvard and the Ivy League was going to be the only people not playing basketball? uh Not, I wouldn't have believed that either. But I learned a lot throughout the journey, not having basketball, having it again, and then feeling like the season before I tore my Achilles, I was felt like I put together my best off season, and I was in the perfect position to like come up and really lead the team. I was captain of the team, and I was like, all right, I'll have the ball for like most of the time. Really, nobody to contest me. Like, I'll be able to score as much as I want, and play all these minutes. We go on a team trip to Canada, and I'm playing well. Probably we played too many games in a small amount of days, and going up for a rebound, came down, boom, tore my Achilles, out for a season. Right when I felt like I was peaking. But even that, like the mental challenge to get back and the physical challenge to get back, and then this season, I had my best scoring numbers, my efficiencies off the charts, and I just didn't want to put any pressure on myself, because I knew that coming back was like really hard, and people don't come back from Achilles injuries, let alone come back and like are better than they were, or even half the player than they were. So I just had to like adjust my game, and be really patient with myself and roll with the punches throughout the season of like, okay, I'm still recovering for probably like the first half of the season. Um, but like continuing to grow, continuing to develop. I think basketball is just as much mental as it is physical. Probably more mental, honestly. So, hell, there's a million ways you can work on your game. But like I said, if you just have that persistence to keep going, and if you're given opportunities, like I was given, here at Harvard, and like I'm going to be given next year, like how can I make the most out of that opportunity? Well, I'm gonna, fit in, find my role, and then I'm gonna try to star in my role, and then I'm gonna try to, work as hard as I can and excel in that role, so I can, get out of it and try to take on more, I guess.
I do have a question for you, Arizona related, but we were talking about your Achilles rehab, and you were saying sometimes you're not half the player, sometimes sometimes you never recover. And someone in the chat asked earlier about the NBA playoffs right now, Evan, and you don't know I'm a Celtic fan, and so this whole conversation, I'm sure for you, brings up bad memories, and these are very recent, less impactful, I will say. But as a fan's perspective, that hurt for hearing you say that. But jokes aside, you have come over a lot of adversity in your career, right? And you've had a lot of experience, and you are from Tucson, so there's a lot of wisdom and knowledge you can impart on younger players on this year's team. Arizona has a ton of impact youth coming into this roster next year. What kind of leader is Tommy Lloyd getting in that locker room? And how can you kind of help be a steadying hand for the younger guys on this roster who are going to play very high level basketball in just their first year in college?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like a perfect situation, because here, we have, one other senior, other than me, and then we've got 7 freshmen playing, all fairly high minutes. So I think it's a fairly similar situation. But you know, um, most of these guys are, man, they're going to be pros. So like if they want to be, I think they should conduct themselves as so. And I don't know what that is, but I have a very good idea. And at the very least, I have a very good idea of what it takes to be like a really good college basketball player. So just like holding these guys accountable, I'm not very, I'm confrontational. Uh, I'm like I don't know, you got to do the little things right. But like vocally, I can lead. Like I said, I'm the hardest worker. Here at Harvard, I've made it like a thing for me to try to be the first one in, last one out.
That's why you're captain.
And then also just like working hard. I mean, working smart. Like I may not have the most time in the gym, but when I am in there, it's like um, efficient and smart. Like I'm shooting shots I know I'm going to get in the game, and then bringing other people in with me does me no good if I'm in there working out like by myself. So I'll make it a point to like have a partner always coming with me, partner shooting, or uh, this past spring I was leading guys through workouts on our team. So just similar stuff to that. And then you also got to connect with guys off the court. I think that's just as important as well. So if these guys want to get some good food, I'll take them. I'll take them to a good place where we get some good Mexican food. We go to Barrio Hollywood. We can get some Sonoran dogs, or like if
Love
they want to
it.
play Fortnite. I'm not a gamer, man, but I'll play Fortnite with these guys. And so like I understand what it takes to be like a tight knit team, and you want to have that relationship be just as strong off the court as you can on the court. So like being a native and having the opportunity to potentially like show these guys good spots and make them feel at home, or at least feel like we're a brother and it's like a brotherly group. Yeah, sometimes it's bigger than wins and losses. Wins are good, but like helping off the court, the off the court stuff will help too.
Super underrated aspect of the Evan Nelson addition to this roster is totally the bringing the dudes to the right Mexican food spots around town, the right Sonoran hot dog spots. Like, I mean,
Yeah,
you gotta have a guy like that on the team, and I feel like with Grant Whiteman moving on, like you can kind of take that baton a little bit and be the Tucson guy on the team. I mean, it works out perfectly.
yeah, exactly.
Well, Evan, we do appreciate you taking the time to talk with us and with especially with everything I'm sure you got going on around grad week at Harvard. But congratulations on your graduation. We can't wait to have you out here in Arizona, and of course, we hope to catch up with you again prior to the basketball season. But thanks for taking the time, man.
Dave and Kevin, appreciate you guys. Have a good rest of the afternoon, and take care.
You as well. You as well.
That was Evan Nelson. Was he the newest edition? No, we got the
No,
two
yeah,
European
international.
guys, but
Yeah.
latest transfer addition to
Are
the
they
Arizona basketball
European?
roster. I'm sorry?
I said, are they European? I don't think that they are. I don't know. Are they? I don't know. I
Well,
don't
I
think so.
guess you're right. I mean,
Pretty sure NBA
is
Academy Africa
not
with like a
in
word.
Europe.
Yeah,
is
with
not
like
in
a
Europe.
word.
But the Gay does
I'm
play
just
for
messing
Real
with you.
Madrid.
Yeah, I'm messing with
You're
you.
right. You're right though. I don't know. NBA Academy Africa could be in Europe.
Yeah, I mean, well,
It could be.
I mean, you watched the World Cup, and I'll say that much. But yeah, no, Evan Nelson was incredible.
That was a great interview.
It was a great interview. Love talking to him. Great guy, it seems. And
Mhm.
I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about, wrap that up, our takeaways from it, Damon. I'll let you get yours, what your biggest takeaway was. I think my biggest takeaway overall was the combination of his willingness to work at basketball with his maturity. Like
Yeah.
I think you see a lot of guys that are either mature and not very good, or like mature but or immature or not fully mature and they're very good. You know what I mean? And I think
Yeah.
Evan Nelson is that wonderful mix of clearly he wants to be a leader. Like he does. It's not someone who leadership has been thrust upon him because he's the point guard and he's one of the best players and it's just his role.
Mhm.
This is someone who seeks that out. And I really liked his answer about the leadership he can bring to the locker room. I like that he didn't, have anything he really wanted to be like, no, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to set things straight and I'm going to, no, he was like, I'm going to hold guys accountable. I'm going to let them know the goal is always the goal. And I'm going to let them know that we're going to lift each other up on the way to reaching that goal. And I think that's going to be a really good addition to next year's locker room because you lose a guy like Caleb Love. And for the local connection, like you said, you lose a guy like Grant Whiteman. So I think it's going to be a pretty all-around home run hit for Tommy Lloyd. At least we haven't seen it on the court yet. But from an intangibles perspective, it seems like everything is there.
Yeah, it certainly does, Kevin. I agree with pretty much everything you just said, and it does just feel like, you know, he said all the things that we speculated about Evan Nelson, and that, you know, we kind of were bought into with the Evan Nelson commitment, right? But I just felt like he spoke to it, you know, so much better than, you know, me or you or any talking head really could, in terms of like,
The guy went to Harvard.
when it's straight out of the horse's mouth, you know what I mean? Like, and you're right. He went to Harvard. He's very articulate, and I loved all the things that he had to say. We're going to talk more about, you know, the Evan Nelson interview and just kind of the recap of, you know, what we heard from him. But we'll do that right after the break here on the AZ Wildcats podcast.
Well, Damon, I would love to talk to our friends at home about Sanderson Ford, because with Sanderson Ford, they got huge news. It's been huge news all summer, and it continues to be huge news. The From America, for America employee pricing, Damon. It is an incredible way to get even. If you want to shop like David Kimmerly or Kimmerl, how do you say his name?
Kimmerly.
That's what I thought it was. I think I was saying it wrong at first, and my brains got crossed. But if you want to shop like him, which is what you should want to do, you should go to Sanderson Ford with their employee pricing from America, for America. And on top of all the employee pricing, get additional Ford incentives on over 1,000, that's 4 digits, 1,000 vehicles during the Sanderson Ford Platinum 70th anniversary sale. Choose Sanderson Ford because they have the inventory and they're celebrating 70 years of treating you right. Now is the best time to buy a Ford from Sanderson Ford with From America, for America employee pricing. In celebration of their 70th anniversary, stop in. Now listen to this. Stop into Sanderson Ford and get a pair of tickets to the Arizona Diamondbacks game just for stopping by. Don't got to put a test drive down. Don't got to buy a car. You just got to show up. And you could get a pair of tickets to the Arizona Diamondbacks game. I do want to mention that it's 1 pair of tickets per household with valid driver's license to the July 6th game versus Kansas City Royals while supply of 200 tickets last. This does exclude 2025 Expedition Super Duty Raptor family and Mustang vehicles. Check out our friends over at Sanderson Ford. Go get some Diamondbacks tickets.
Check out Sanderson Ford. Get those Diamondback tickets. It's honestly, Kevin, it's such a great little just incentive, right, to go get yourself the vehicle that you've been wanting. Another great incentive to get, you know, make a big purchase that you've been wanting, you've been needing maybe, is Empire Today. We got a promo code for you, $350 off your new flooring. And here's why Empire Today is so much better than those big box stores that, you know, are the alternatives to going to a big, you know, national flooring company like Empire Today that can just really experts in flooring, right? If you go to a big box store, they're going to make you lug all of the equipment back, get yourself a contractor. You might not like the flooring when you put it in. Not with Empire Today. They're going to give you their virtual floor designer. They're going to show up at your house, show you what that flooring is going to look like in your home with all the proper walls and furniture already added on, right? And you can decide, do I need to make this big giant purchase? And, you know, when I do make this big giant purchase, should I use my $350 off with promo code PHNX? Like I said, it's a national company. You can get the job done pretty much anywhere in the United States, not just in the great state of Arizona. And you can schedule a free in-home estimate today because some things are just better at home. PHNX listeners can receive a $350 discount when using promo code PHNX. Yes, guys, you heard that right. A $350 discount with promo code PHNX. Restrictions apply. Visit EmpireToday/PHNX for full details. Details. I feel like I only ever hear people say details like that on like a podcast
You're right.
read.
That's a good point. Damn, David. Bringing the deep cuts today. That's a deep observation.
I know, dude. That's so deep.
Yeah, for full details. Damn. Like, because if you're asking, like, if you told me a story and I'm like, yo, can I get more details?
Mm-hmm.
I would never say, yo, can I get more details?
You wouldn't.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, that's a good point, Damon. And
it's an okay point.
I think it's a good because it was so insightful. You got to like really dig deep into that. Really be observe. You got to really observe human interaction is what I'm saying to pick that up. Anyway, I talking about Evan Nelson, talking about takeaways from that interview. I wanted to really dig in on the Tucson connection here. Because I do think it's important. I know it's like a small thing in relation to everything else that actually matters on the basketball court to win a national championship. But I do think one of your impact players, understanding the importance of that program to the city in which it plays, I think is crucial to success, right? Like you look at Florida last year, I think a huge undertone of what that team was motivated by was bringing Florida back to the top of college basketball because they knew what it meant to that program to be back at the mountaintop, to be respected amongst all of the maybe one tier below a blue blood schools, right? They want to be respected in that, and I think that really showed in all their interviews that they would have after their March Madness games. I think when you look at UConn, the 2-year run they had under Dan Hurley a couple years ago, where they're trying to get back to the things that Kemba Walker was able to do in the fire that he lit in the where what city is UConn in?
Shoot.
Hartford? No, I don't know.
I think their stadium, all of that area is
it's just Connecticut.
Connecticut is one place.
It's just Connecticut.
That's such a good, like, Connecticut is literally one big city. I felt like
I've been. Fun fact about me, Damon. I don't think you even know this. I've toured UConn's campus. I still don't know what city it's in.
You toured UConn's campus, as in like you were maybe potentially going to go there.
Not actually, potentially. It's in stores. Says Sam Alberts in the chat. Well, but no, not. I was never going to go there.
Mansfield, Connecticut. The main campus is in stores.
Yeah. Yeah. But no, I toured it.
That's what I feel like you could say that that UConn is in 5 different cities and you'd be correct.
I'm pretty sure it's mostly in stores. But no, like I was saying, like me and my grandpa, we did this really cool thing when I was learning how to drive. We took a road trip across the country from St. Louis to his hometown in New York. It was very awesome, lifelong memory for me. A part of that tour.
That's sweet.
Yeah, it really was actually. A part of that tour was we stopped at UConn because I was like, I'm a huge sports guy, and like, when am I ever going to be on UConn's campus ever again?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was like, let's tour it. Apparently they have incredible ice cream there. It's like one of their big take homes. If you ever go to UConn, you have to have the ice cream because they have their own like ag school there. So they grow their own stuff and they milk their own cows and all that good stuff that I don't know how to do because I have soft hands. But I did tour it. Never was going to go. Nice campus though.
I like doing that too. I don't think it's a weird thing. I like checking out campuses and getting kind of the vibe. I've been to quite a few. I've been to a few recently. When I was out in Atlanta, where you'll be going pretty soon here, I went to Athens, which is one of my favorite college towns. So I don't think it's a weird thing to do.
Maybe I
all.
should peep Georgia while I'm down there. Actually,
I think if you have the time,
I'll be down there for like a week.
You should go to Athens. It's like a little over an hour away, I think, but it's a really really cool town. Really cool.
Might have to check that out. But yeah, back to the topic at hand. UConn, like I think a lot of what has driven my point being with all this, a lot of what drives I think national champions sometimes is that like cultural push from the program to the players that the players actually feel, understand, and then go out and play with that motivation. And I think while yes, the Gritty Boys, that was an incredible moniker and it was a great nickname, and I think it really embodied that year's team last season. But I don't think that it necessarily came from a place of like. It was player created, and I think that player created stuff can be awesome. You've seen it with the Fab Five, the Crab Five. Mileage may vary, but I think like when you look at that connection from city to court, I think it's huge, and I think Evan Nelson can really help impart the importance on that for the fans to the players. He can help relay that in a way that I don't think anyone else could. Like even Jaden Bradley, who's played here for years now, right, and he understands the care that fans have. I think even he would have a hard time like communicating just how important it is to someone from Tucson to see Arizona basketball succeed. And you have the Cactus coming back to the court, which we're going to get to later. We have an update on the polls there, Damon. And then you have Evan Nelson coming back. And credit to Grant Whiteman, he didn't really play. You know what I mean? I think having someone that's impactful on the basketball court, that can hold guys accountable and also show them exactly how important it is to win games in Tucson and the things it can do for the city. I think that those kind of intangible benefits really take a team from like great to title contenders.
I agree 100%. I think it's those little things, right? And you heard Evan speak to the little things and how important those they are to him. I can't, he says that he wants to be that kind of on-court coach. I can't help but feel that, his kind of role for this team, and he spoke to it a little bit, but I think he's really expected to be a leader, right? And to what your point was earlier, bringing in a Koa Pete, bringing in a Dwayne Aristote, bringing in a Braden Burries.
Bringing in guys who've only been playing basketball for 4 or 5 years.
He is a big portion of like the leadership aspect of the team itself that's going to hold those players accountable. And And he, like he said, like he doesn't know quite how to be a pro necessarily. Those guys will be pros, but he has a pretty good idea, and he knows how to conduct himself as a high-level college basketball player that, wants to win and wants to do everything it takes to win. And I think that, just you couldn't ask for, it's like, it's almost a picture perfect, Kevin, backup point guard. Is it not?
Cinema.
Like, no,
Cinema.
genuinely, like this is a guy he's coming to play for a big time program. He has starter experience at the Division I level, playing for a team in Harvard that, wasn't making the tournament while he was there necessarily, but has been a consistent tournament team in years past, right? And, and they're always towards the upper echelon of the Ivy League. He was, he has that starting experience. He has that ball handling experience at a high level, but he also, as you were saying, has all of the intangibles that you would check off of a list. From the city, check. Grew up a fan of the program, check.
Has great admiration for the coach.
Has great
check.
admiration for the coach, check. Wants to be that on-field coach, check. And says he's willing to get in people's faces and hold people accountable. Like, this is exactly the backup point guard that you would, you would you would dream of. You know what I mean? So absolutely, I love the addition. Everything that he said made me love the addition even more than I already did. And I just feel that, yeah, this is the type of thing that takes like you said, a good team to a great team. Like, this is the little things that really pushes a team over the top. And, if you can instill that idea of what it means to play for this program in every single player on this team, then, that kind of culture building that we talked about yesterday with Tommy Lloyd is only going to continue to grow and grow, spiral. And, it seems like there's a clear goal in mind for this program, because you heard Evan say it: Final Four, Final Four, Final Four, beating Houston, winning the Big 12. He said that was the explicit message that was told to him in the recruitment process. And I love that we're getting everyone on the same page. In May, Kevin, he committed in April. In April, we're telling everybody, the Final Four's going on in the background. You see that? We're going to be there next year. And I love just kind of, speaking it into existence, like instilling this kind of idea that this is the expectation of this program.
I have two thoughts. First thought, I'll go with the latter of what you said there. And I'll go by saying, like, not to combat, but to add to what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably been Tommy Lloyd's attitude as soon as the buzzer hit in the Duke game. I think he's telling Koa Pete, Final Four, beat Houston. That's our goal. You know what I mean? Yeah. Telling Braden Burry's final. I mean, I'm sure he's doing this as a part of his pitch before, but I think like it really becomes like you put it on the message board. You put a photo of the scoreboard, whatever the hell you want to do. Like I think it becomes that thing, right? That what was that rivalry from the Tim Tebow documentary? Was it Florida Georgia? Was it Florida Georgia? Where Georgia beat Florida, and then all Florida did for 365 days was think about how they were going to beat the hell out of Georgia, and then the next time they played them, whew.
And they just have crazy people in the lifting in the weight room. I know exactly what you're talking about.
It feels like it's almost like that though for Arizona basketball, right? Yeah. Where you just can't get this monkey of Houston off your back, and so what are you going to do? You're going to spend 365 until you can play them again, thinking about how you're going to beat the crap out of them and leave them laying on the ground bloodied. You know what I mean? I feel like that is kind of the mentality that Tommy Lloyd has had towards the Big 12 and Houston in general. And it's not a malicious thing. It's a benevolent, motivated thing because Houston is just that standard in the Big 12 right now. And the second thing I wanted to talk about, Damon, is it's May, right? Not even close to basketball season.
We sleep in May.
I don't want to, some of us. I don't want to overreact to anything going down.
Is that a vacation joke?
Yeah. Man, Damon, it's hard to refuse the fact that the vibes surrounding this year's upcoming team, maybe you feel differently, but to me, again, small thing, but between the Cactus coming back to the court, between the huge, high-profile recruiting class, between last year's, I think it was still an impressive showing last year overall. Maybe mileage may vary on that.
It was a good season last year.
But the impressive showing in the first year in the Big 12 last year, the returning of the vintage vibes, the high-profile recruiting class, Evan Nelson, the hometown hero touch, right? The pieces are there for a truly special year for the Arizona Wildcats basketball program. I'm not making any predictions. I'm not getting too over dramatic here, but the vibes are very, very, very positive right now for Arizona men's basketball.
Yeah.
And I think the program is moving rapidly in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say rapidly because I feel like they were already on the right track. They're already one of the better programs in the country.
They've accelerated, I'll say.
Yeah, I do think that they are. This current iteration and build of the roster is a very, very good one. And I felt similarly, I'll be honest, about 2 seasons ago's roster where you had, Kylan Boswell, who I think everyone expected to take a massive jump in year 2. Especially considering he enrolled early and looked so good as a 17-year-old, as we very much were told about. But you had Kylan Boswell, you expected that jump. You had Caleb Love coming in to provide that experience, that big game player type of volume scorer. You had Pella Larson, who is an experienced player and an NBA player. Kashad Johnson, who I thought was the perfect fit next to Umar Ballo, despite not loving the Umar Ballo profile of player. And then Umar Ballo is, a serviceable to good college big man. Then you had Jaden Bradley off the bench. I felt similarly about that team, and ultimately it didn't lead to, what we wanted it to as Arizona fans. But I think in part that was due to the the Pac-12, I should say, and just getting into the habit of playing teams like that in that conference. I think that now with the combination of the Big 12 and you look at the current roster and kind of the pieces that are in place, you have a senior point guard, you have a senior backup point guard with a lot of experience. You have Braden Burry's 5-star coming in to provide that volume scorer. You have Koa Pete as your, level of athletic big that we haven't seen at Arizona for a very, very long time that really changes I feel like that changes the scale of a game, having a guy like Koa Pete, where, you look at like a team that has big wings that are, in college basketball, they tend to be pretty successful teams. At Arizona, even you look at Aaron Gordon, Stanley Johnson, like those are really high impact players that were ranked similarly to Koa Pete was. And you expect that, right? And then you also have a center rotation that I think has a pretty high floor. So you look at the team, all of the pieces are pretty much in place. And I agree with you. I think that this is, it's shaping up to be a roster that has really high expectations and that really could go all of the way. We'll see. It's so hard in college basketball. It's such a volatile game, and it's, it's single elimination, 68 team tournament. It's hard to come out on top of that thing, but yeah, I mean, I really do think the direction of this program is on the up. Tommy Lloyd is one of the elite proven coaches in the country. And, I think that this team continues to take on that Big 12 mentality head on. And it's impressive to see the way that they've done it. And, it wasn't the most talented roster last year, but I felt like that team, the Gritty Boys moniker, like that drove them to, flip the script and be a really good conference team in the most difficult conference in America. And now I expect that to even, tenfold expand with having that extra talent level raised as well.
Yeah, and before we move on to the KJ Lewis stuff and some of the news and notes from around Arizona athletics, I wanted to wrap up this conversation by touching on something you spoke to, which was, chat, was the idea that with Koa Pete, it really changes the trajectory and the level of every single game that you're in. And I think when you talk about in the simplest terms, like this is basketball. Basketball is a sport where if you have the best player on the court, your chances of winning dramatically increase. It's not like baseball, where even if you have a Shohei Ohtani, you could still lose to the Diamondbacks at home because the Diamondbacks have the power of friendship, right? But like, my point is that like having Koa Pete, and I think to everyone's credit on last year's Arizona roster, they didn't have that player. I guess Caleb Love was, but he was kind of mercurial up and down last year. I think Arizona in every game, for the most part, in every game will have the best player on the court, whether it's Koa Pete, whether it's Braden Burry's, you know what I mean? Whether it's, you know what I mean? I think that is, I think, one of the biggest differences from last year to this year is that true blue chipper that you can rely on and try to develop and turn into a top 5 pick in the draft. And I think it's funny because Arizona kind of has 2 of them, but Koa Pete is like the true like specimen of an athlete that can really take your team from one echelon to the next. Braden Burries has a potential to join him on that, but like just off their physicality, I don't think you would assume that Braden Burries is going to be like this transcendent talent outside of the skills he has.
Yeah, certainly. You have Daniel here in the comments says, this is the highest I've been hyped for a UA team in a long time. We're going to be young but lethal. I 100% agree with that. I just think that the ceiling of this roster is, kind of on a different level. You just have to find a way to keep that mentality from last season. And, getting a guy like Evan Nelson goes a long way in terms of making that happen. Kevin, we're going to talk more about another guy maybe potentially returning that could help bring the Gritty Boys back right after the break here on the AZ Wildcats podcast.
Damon, one thing that I'm going to have to do today is stop by Circle K. And, if I could, I would go to Circle K every day. But I don't necessarily need to fill up on gas. But if I do go to Circle K every day, I can get anything I need. Water, snacks, hot food, cold food, sandwiches. You got your energy drinks. You got your beer situation over there as well. Circle K truly is America's thirst stop. If you need gas, if you need any of the things I just listed, Circle K is your all one-stop shop for that. It truly is America's thirst stop. You can join the Inner Circle today by downloading the Circle K app for free. All you got to do is give them, a number and an email. And then next thing you know, you can get 25 cents off on gas for your next 5 fill-ups. Does that interest you? $0.25 off on gas for your first 5?
Adds up.
The savings don't stop though, Damon. After that, you get 3 cents off. After that, after you graduate like Evan Nelson did from Harvard, congratulations, you get into that 5 cents off per gallon echelon, and all the other member exclusive benefits on top of that. Does a cherry on top interest you, Damon? I think it does. Join the Inner Circle like me, like Damon, probably like Evan Nelson today by joining the Circle K app. Terms and conditions do apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for more details.
Evan Nelson's a Circle K guy. He's a Tucson boy.
So, he's been at that one right across from National Championship Drive. He's been there. He's been there countless times. He might live there now. Who knows?
I used to wait for my parents to pick up me and my grandpa after every home football game at that Circle K.
Wow.
My parents would come pull up behind the Circle K.
History of the Circle K.
100%. It means a lot to my childhood. Similar to your story with your grandpa earlier.
That's real.
It's beautiful. And I'm
we
glad
were talking Nanas yesterday. We're talking Papas today. This is crazy.
I'm glad Circle K is a part of it. Another thing that you're going to want to be a part of is Gila River Resorts and Casinos. I was talking with my guy Max this morning. There's another competing casino out there with garbage commercials that I was making fun of. Gila River Resorts and Casinos would never have such horrific commercials. Every time a Gila River Resorts and Casino commercial comes on, it makes me want to move my body a little bit, Kevin, because they play good music in those things.
It's a vibe.
And it is a total vibe. And it conveys what the vibe of the resorts and casinos themselves are. Because Gila River Resorts and Casinos is just a great time. Kevin, you went and you took your girlfriend for her birthday out to Wild Horse Pass, indulged in some of the beautiful activities there at that casino, got a room, had a steak dinner. What was your favorite part of Gila River Resorts and Casinos Wild Horse Pass when you made your stay there? Not
even joking, I don't know what to pick because I had that good of a time. But if I had to narrow it down, I would say the steakhouse there is amazing. They have some great food there, and it is a little pricier, but they do have some cheaper food options, some more affordable food options, I'll say rather. And it's you can't miss at Gila River. I even upgraded.
They got everything.
I actually upgraded my stay there a little bit. Got a little got a little up in the rooms. I'll just say that. It was very nice. It was very nice. Very comfortable. The pool? I did not hit the pool.
You should have gone and checked it out because the pool is absolutely incredible. Gila River Resorts Casinos, they got the pool. They got all the live table games and slots. They got low dining options to the high dining options. Anything that fits your budget, they're going to make it happen for you. And of course, they have their beautiful concerts. Kevin also brought it up to me that his girlfriend wants to go back and indulge in a little bit of sportsbook action. They have the biggest sportsbook in the state of Arizona, BetMGM Sportsbook. So head on over to Wild Horse Pass. Check it out. It is so much fun. You do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit play@gila.com for more details. Can you believe, Maxie? By the way, I wake up to a text message. I don't know if I really woke up to it, but he sends me a tweet that I had last night where I trashed a competing casino. And he was like, "What is this?" It's like me
keeping it 100, Max.
me going to war like Jon Snow for my good friends at Wild Horse Pass. Oh, sorry.
Wild Horse Pass is like truly one of my favorite places I've been in all of Arizona, which is crazy because there's so many cool places in Arizona to go. But yeah, Damon, should we talk KJ Lewis now?
Let's do it.
We're about an hour into the show. Let's get to the title.
KJ Lewis, Kevin's favorite player from last season. Of course, we were big fans of KJ Lewis on this show. He wasn't always a perfect player, but he really was. I think he provides a lot to the team in terms of, I think he helps win.
1,000%.
I really do think he's a winning basketball player. He makes big plays. And while he wasn't always the greatest scoring option, he was probably the strongest defender on last year's team. Had, some low IQ fouls. No, I won't.
The fouling 3-pointers.
That in particular, but also there'd be times where, he would tell Tommy, hey, I'm good. I got 2 fouls early in the first half. I'm good. Keep me out here. I'm not going to foul. Immediate foul swipe in on and so that kind of stuff, it wasn't always positive with KJ Lewis, but KJ Lewis was a player on this team that, I think he was the 3rd leading minutes getter on the roster last year, even off the bench, and was a key cog in the team. According to Jenna Fink, who does great work. If you don't follow Jenna Fink, she's in the Tucson television media scene. She works for KVOA.
I think like somewhat new to town as well. Like I think she moved to Tucson while I was still in college. So like new to the scene and absolutely just killing it.
I think you're right about that. I was gonna say, I remember I was at Brent Brennan's introductory press conference and she was there at that. So I was gonna say not too new, but yeah, definitely in the last couple of years here and
been killing it though.
Very, very good at her job, Jenna. She was at Hillenbrand for the softball game against Ole Miss, the final 2 games there that saw Arizona softball unfortunately get eliminated. And who else was there? KJ Lewis, and this is via Jenna M. Fink on Twitter, sitting in the crowd there, taking in some Arizona softball.
Looks like something interesting just happened. He's saying, "Oh."
It's funny now, Kevin, because, and I'm not, this is, we did get our hopes up a little bit regarding Henri Veesaar right before he made it official that he was going to Chapel Hill and committing to UNC. He was at an Arizona softball game. Difference being Henri Veesaar's girlfriend was a former player and a coach on the team. So, he was out there supporting. We don't know KJ Lewis's personal life. We don't know if maybe he has a similar connection to the team. It's very possible, but also, we're going to do what we do, and that's a little bit of reckless speculation.
Reading the
tea
leaves a little bit.
Yeah, and why not? Why not get hyped? Why not, get ourselves to a point of wishfulness and hope for it to all come crashing and burning to the ground inevitably when he just goes to Georgetown like
he's slated to do? Yeah.
Kevin, is KJ Lewis going to come back to the Arizona Wildcats?
Damon, I don't know. But no, I like when I saw this photo, like I instantly, I emojis all over the place. Like,
Sure.
How on text you could just do the echo and they go everywhere? That was me in real life. I was like, why? Like, and you and I were talking about this when, it kind of happened. We were talking about it in person. Like, do we talk about this? Like, what is this weird? It's weird, right? Like, he's at the game. And like you said, excuse me, Chad, like you said, we don't know why he was at the game. We don't really we don't like have to know. It's his personal life, right? He could be showing up just to show love to a team that he put in hours and countless amount of days trying to represent this program. Maybe he's back in town getting the last of his belongings. Maybe he's back in town.
Tucson too.
He's
lived in Tucson.
Maybe he's back in town seeing family. Maybe he's back in town fulfilling the last of his NIL responsibilities before he ships off to Georgetown. We don't know why KJ Lewis was in Tucson. It doesn't really matter why he was in Tucson, but he was in Tucson, Damon. And I think when you look at the college landscape, you have guys like Kean Burnett, impact player, right? Goes to a team, spends a season, not like an actual calendar season, but like a literal season, like fall, winter, spring, spends a season with them, and then says, you know what? I miss Tucson. I'm going back home. Tommy Lloyd, well, in that case, Brent Brennan, bring me home. You know what I mean? Maybe KJ Lewis is having a little bit of, would buyer's remorse be the right term? If we're going to Georgetown and then maybe he scopes it out and it's just not the same vibe that he thought it would be, and he comes back to Tucson and softball at the time was humming, and you're like, you know what, like maybe I could stay here for a little bit longer. Maybe
Man,
Koa Pete would be nice, kind of playing next to me. I saw Evan Nelson on the AZ Wildcats podcast, and I'm feeling inspired. So maybe KJ Lewis does return. How are you feeling about the potential? Is he returning?
maybe he thought to himself, man, Georgetown kind of sucks. Man, when was the last time Georgetown made an NCAA tournament?
Yeah,
We're
brother
kind of a
looked
garbage
at
heap
college
of a
basketball
program
reference
now.
for the first time since signing there. He
He
just
was
went
like,
back and looked
I
at
thought
it.
this was a program with storied history and Allen Iverson and Patrick Ewing. And you're like, we were KJ. But yeah, I mean,
Sorry, this just crossed across my big old forehead here. Carter Bryant officially is all in on the NBA. Had that revenue sharing deal with the University of Arizona in case he does decide to come back. It does not seem like he's going to. So if you're Arizona, it probably feels like you can spend that money. Part of the reason why KJ Lewis, we speculated, part of the reason is why he left was because the money wouldn't have been there between Koa Pete, Carter Bryant, Baden Burries, Jaden Bradley, Henri Veesaar if he stayed, Tobe Awaka, like the whole roster. There's just not enough money.
correct.
With Carter Bryant giving that money back, all of a sudden the coffers are full again. All of a sudden, we're not broke boys anymore.
Got a
I
little
got
bit of
my
cash to
swagger
burn.
back. You know what I
A
mean?
little bit of cash to burn.
Do you think that potentially this actually was a situation where KJ Lewis come back to town, maybe negotiating a little bit? I don't know.
You know,
It's not crazy, no. It's actually not crazy to think that.
no, it isn't crazy to think that. And that was kind of where my mind was at, and not necessarily in regards to KJ Lewis, although if you remember, Kevin, I did say to you off air, once Carter determined that he was going to be joining the NBA for good, I did say to Kevin at one point, man, it would be nice to have KJ
You
Lewis
did.
on this team right about now. But in general, I thought that to replace Carter Bryant, if he's not going to come back, you do have plenty of money to go get yourself another wing player. You know, even if it's not necessarily going to be the starter and you want to trust a little bit more in Dwayne Aristode, you know, you could get yourself a pretty serviceable rotation player, I think, at a fraction of the cost of what Carter Bryant would cost you. But
And a guy who's got some starting experience as well.
it does feel like you have a good chunk of change to play with without Carter Bryant.
And it feels like they're not in the same, respectfully, it feels like they're not working in the same tax bracket, Carter Bryant and KJ Lewis. So it feels like you could probably give a decent percentage of Carter Bryant's check to KJ Lewis, and he'd be fine with it.
I remember initially, you know, our guy Saul Bookman basically reported that KJ Lewis didn't have a chance of coming back to Arizona when he entered the transfer portal.
Correct.
That his time at Arizona was done. I wonder how much of the Carter Bryant side of those things impacted that decision on his part, knowing that, hey, there's only so much playing time that can go around. I want to be, you know, one of the guys of a team. And now you look at Arizona's current roster, you know, and you think to yourself, there's plenty of playing time to go around for a guy like KJ Lewis, who, you know, Arizona doesn't have that profile of player as things are currently constituted. So I don't know, man. I certainly, if I was KJ and I could get paid a similar amount of money to play for the team that I, you know, have played my first 2 years of college at, to play with, you know, my buddies who, you know, I'm sure he has a great relationship with guys like Jaden Bradley and whatnot.
Brothers for life.
Why not at least just gouge the interest and see if it's a possibility? You know, this all goes with the caveat of saying that it's very possible that, similar to an Evan Nelson, who's in, you know, Massachusetts right now, in Boston, because he's graduating from the school. Not to say KJ's graduating, but he very well could be finishing up his semester and then getting his things and transferring out to DC area, right?
Exactly.
But that's very possible. But I also think that it's not the most outlandish idea that he could return, especially when we see guys like Keon Burnett, who did exactly that. Left at that exact time period where the transfer portal was open, committed to a new school, tried it out, found their way back.
Indeed, and if you want to find your way back to more of our content, head over to gophnx.com. If you're watching with any of our television streaming partners, if you're on YouTube,
Just a pro's
stay
pro, man.
exactly where you're at. You're in the right spot because we are going to overtime. We're in overtime. We are in overtime right now, Damon Dog. And you know, I wanted to touch on KJ Lewis real quick because I've all of a sudden convinced myself that we're gonna pay him a big bag, and all of a sudden he's gonna come back. I've convinced myself, Damon. I don't know how to reconcile this in my brain. But
I hope it's the truth, man. I hope it happens.
so too. But that's why I wanted to address Lost Highway's comment here in the chat. He says, you'd think Tommy would have the foresight to tell KJ the possibility with the money. And I agree with you, actually. I really do. That Tommy Lloyd, if he was working with all the information, should have told KJ, hey, this is the possibility. But I think two things are really realistic with that. If Tommy was doing that. One, it's putting KJ in a hell of a situation because now he's got to wait months. Because KJ's deal has been sorted for a while now. He's been good for a while now. Knows where he's going, can get his life in order. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If Tommy's like, hey, wait for me, please. Carter might go. Carter might not go. Wait until middle May. Maybe even as late as May 28th. I think that's the deadline to withdraw. It's putting KJ in a tough spot. And so I feel like, while yes, in an ideal world, you'd have all the people just sitting on pending until Carter Bryant, goes or doesn't go. But I think in reality, it seemed like KJ Lewis wanted a definitive answer in the moment, and he wasn't getting it. And I'm not saying that, I'm not reporting anything, but I'm speculating that that's what it seemed like. It seemed like KJ Lewis would have loved for Carter Bryant to have come out and been like, bang, I'm either coming back or I'm not. But KJ wanted that security of having a role, right? Jay says in the chat that it was all about numbers, and if he wanted to be the dude on the team, winning was never the answer with him. I mean, he picked Georgetown, like Damon said. But I think it was a combination of role and money. Like, I think it was a combination of the fact that he can go to Georgetown and be one of the guys at Georgetown and get paid a nice little pay raise, right, to go do it. But if you can offer him his role back at Arizona increased threefold, whatever you want to multiply it by, and also give him that nice little pay bump that he got, who's to say that you can't convince him to come back to Arizona? Because you'd have the continuity, you'd have him having the chance to finish his story at Arizona in a more positive way. I think with fans that watched game in, game out, I think we rehashed. I'm not going to rehash it in full because we talked about it during the season so much, but like, real fans respected KJ Lewis's game at a minimum. Whether they, loved everything about his game, mileage may vary. But I think people who knew ball and like really loved Arizona basketball respected KJ Lewis's game at the bare minimum. And I think there was a loud minority of people who just didn't like him at all from either a personal perspective or a player perspective. And I think that it kind of soured the overall feeling of what his time at Arizona was.
Yeah.
And I think him coming back with a chance to rewrite that ending in a much more positive light, I think would be really beautiful. And I hope he does come back because Arizona, like you said to me a couple weeks ago, could really use a player like KJ Lewis right now.
Yeah. It's similar to the Evan Nelson side of things where KJ, while he claims Texas and is a little bit more, I think, reps Texas a little bit more, he's another guy who, lived in Arizona, lived in Tucson, and knows what it's like, and knows what Arizona basketball means to this community. So, I think that there's probably a piece of him that, like, he'll always love Arizona basketball. And who knows if that's something that could potentially, help him find his way back at Arizona. And yeah, I hope it happens as well, Kevin. I don't know how realistic it is. I don't know. We're not really sure what the reason for him being in Tucson was. As I said, it very well could be him just tying up some loose ends. But
got bored, went to the game.
There's certainly a bigger role and a bigger piece of the pie for him now from a money standpoint. To return to Arizona if that's something that he was interested in, and I'm sure Tommy would take him. I feel like Tommy would take him because he knows the system, and I don't think while there's some people, and someone put it in the chat, like Jay said it about his whining for calls and talking about I think there's some idea that he's a bit of an attitude guy, and I don't necessarily feel that way. I feel like he's an expressive personality, but he's not. I don't think that his teammates or his coaches would say that he's a problem necessarily. And I hope that he comes back to finish what he started and kind of takes that Gritty Boys thing to another level, or just Gritty Boys Part 2, right? Going into next season would be, I think, pretty cool for all Arizona fans. So we'll see in regards to KJ Lewis. We'll see if there's any, fire where the smoke is coming out of. But yeah, I think Kevin and I are both on the same page in terms of we'd take him. Should be the starting 3 on this roster very easily if he does, if he was to come back. And yeah, I think it helps this team and raises the ceiling even higher. Where I already think they're a Final Four ceiling team, I think that this could, really put them in that preseason top 5 type of range that would be, reminiscent of a pretty special Arizona basketball team.
Totally agree with you on that. We were in lockstep there. I also wanted to reference what Jay was saying in the chat about the call complaining and things like that. Even as KJ Lewis is probably one of his biggest fans in the whole fan base, I felt like last year, even I was, I think, kind of at times I felt critical of him for doing that. I think as one of the leaders of the team, no matter how expressive you are, you have to pick your moments. And I think there were certain games where, and not to pull a cliche out of, I sound like a guy just in the locker room, but the first team to complain sometimes really is the team that loses. The first team to complain to the ref is the first team that's not looking at the goal. That's the first team that is worried about something they cannot control as opposed to something they can control, which is their own play on the court and just next play mentality, right? So I think at times he kind of fell out of that next play mentality, right? And I think that is a valid criticism, but I don't think that he was necessarily a whiny player. I think he was, like Damon said, an expressive player at Arizona who didn't necessarily always pick the best moments to express his frustration, whether it be with the refs. But I do think he did a very good job of on-court leadership, holding guys accountable, holding feet to the fire when necessary on the court.
And he'd fire people up too. He was one of the energy leaders of the team for sure. I think when Caleb Love, would have those moments, and I'm just gonna pretend like you didn't even say that. When Caleb Love would have those moments where, he's hitting 3 after 3 or getting an and one or whatever, he's obviously firing his team up. But other than that, I don't think any other guy is firing last year's roster up as much as KJ Lewis. Yeah, but those moments came more sparingly, in my opinion. It was every time ADO did something for sure.
Yeah,
but
he let you know.
KJ Lewis is on the court way more than ADO was. Causing steals, getting fouled on the other end, clapping in people's faces. I think that's that kind of energy he was providing for you very regularly. And yeah, Daniel says, he thought that maybe some bigger schools would have taken a look at him. I'm pretty sure Kansas was very much
Houston,
in his
I think,
top
was also
3.
interested, I think.
Yeah, I
right?
think
Am I wrong on that?
They may have been slightly interested.
Is memory failing me? Or am I just conflating our idea of him being a Houston basketball player with the fact that he may or may not have been recruited?
They were interested in high school out of him, for sure.
Because I remember you and I all season being like, KJ Lewis, Houston basketball.
Very true. But yeah, there was I think that they were saying that Kansas was in his top 3, Georgetown, and there was one other school that was actually pretty decent sized as well, if I remember correctly. So, I do think he did receive some of that attention, but Georgetown was ultimately willing to give him the role that he wanted. And now that role kind of opens up at Arizona a little bit more. So that's where things, lead to a little bit of speculation here. But, KJ Lewis was out there watching the softball game, Kevin. Unfortunately, the softball team did lose. And we unfortunately do have to talk about kind of just the downfall of this Arizona softball season. But Kevin, I believe you have some sound for us from the Big 12 Player of the Year, Devin Netz, who played her last game at Arizona and will not be, returning for another season, but really capped it off with a special year, playing both sides of the ball, playing first base, pitching, leading the team in bombs, just an unbelievable season from Devin Netz. So, what did Devin Netz had to say in terms of, her Arizona career coming to an end?
Yeah, Devin Netz was quite emotional after the loss, for obvious reasons. A career coming to an end, a very storied career coming to an end. And I think what I'll let Netz speak for herself here, but I think what stood out to me most was the idea that Caitlin Lowe Arizona taking a chance on Devin Netz and her coming through in the way that she did. And yeah, this was Devin Netz, quite emotional after the loss.
I'd just like to say thank you to Kate and Coach Kendria for taking a chance on a girl who just wanted to play at the highest level and who also wanted to just win a national championship and just who loved the game. And I remember the moment that I stepped on campus that it was just everything that I wanted. And I remember sitting in my math class in high school, emailing them saying, you know what, I want to win a national championship with you guys. And when I got that email back, I was so excited. I knew I was going to commit here. And Gosh, I couldn't have picked a better school. Couldn't have picked a better coaching staff. But gosh, I'm so grateful for the people that have surrounded me, the people who supported me, everyone behind the scenes. But gosh, I can't help but think that we're leaving this uniform better than we found it. And not only as a player, but also as a person. It's just one of the biggest things that I strive to do is just to leave each place better than I found it. And honestly, I can't think of a better group than to leave this uniform with and pass it on to our seniors this next year. But quite honestly, thank you for taking a chance on me.
Kevin, bit of a tough watch there.
Definitely.
It's always sad to see careers somewhat come to an end. And I know Devin Nuts got drafted to, continue her softball career.
Shout out to the Bandits.
If she so chooses. But, this is the pinnacle of that sport of softball is the ultimate goal of trying to get to the Women's College World Series, get to a national championship. And it's sad to see such a great player like Devin Nuts who, dedicated a lot of, hard work and time to this program. And it certainly looked like the beginning of this season, like maybe Arizona softball was on the trajectory to be a top 10 team to, maybe make a lot of noise if things broke their way and momentum happened at the right time. But ultimately, they just somewhat weren't playing their best softball at the right time, and it was they take the loss to Ole Miss, and the SEC is just dominant in softball right now. What it means for Arizona in the long term, I think, is a little bit more of a interesting conversation, Kevin, just because you look at the way the SEC is dominating. Schools like Oklahoma and Texas, before they made the jump to the SEC, were kind of taking over the sport. But doing so in the Big 12, now you move them to the SEC. All of the money that is coming into women's sports is really being, kind of flushed in and out of the SEC in general. And yeah, can Arizona reach that height of being that top level softball program anymore? Or do you think that they're kind of just going to hover around that top 15 range and, maybe every once in a while have a really good year where they make the College World Series, but that being that kind of national prominent program is maybe a little bit more of a thing of the past?
I'll say this. I think right now, as fans, we're all experiencing a return to the mean in terms of expectations. I think, you have this great history and you would kind of expect it to just continue because it's what it's done forever, but that's incredibly hard to keep up. And I think right now you're realizing that once you have power turnover and you have a new manager in there in Kaylin Lowe, that not necessarily that Kaylin Lowe's done a poor job. She's done a very good job right so far. But I think like there's a
decent. She did miss the tournament once.
No, you're right.
And
true.
She's
done a decent job so far. Good job. Mileage. Point being, she's done a job so far. Mm-hmm. And I think that with a new coach, after having such a storied history of the program, you have to kind of reset expectations to an extent, right? And I think that is kind of what's happening right now with Arizona softball fans. And I also will say, I think that it's totally possible for Arizona to maintain the historic trajectory that they've been on this whole time. I think it's totally possible for them to return to the top of the sport specifically because that history is there, and it is still so recent and still so felt in softball. So I really feel like that, we talk about it with Arizona basketball, players looking around the country at programs that they want to play for. I think Arizona softball can still be in that top 5 of programs that when you look around the country, you're like, yeah, I want to be an Arizona Wildcat softball player. That's what I want to be. I think it's possible.
To Dick's point, I feel like, you kind of got to, at least for a pitcher in particular, 100%, you got to up the ante of what kind of neck of the woods Arizona is willing to play in. And I feel like with taking a little bit of a step back from a women's basketball perspective, and that's not to say that their DRF isn't investing in women's basketball. I think that there is investment going into that side of things, but it's a step back from, the number 1 recruiting class out of high school in the country, and Adia Barnes is a top 10 highest paid coach in the sport, right? So there should be some added money. Hopefully that gets funneled into softball a little bit, because I feel like this program should be, one of the premier sports on campus that represents this university, and that, is somewhat of a calling card for Tucson in general, right? Because Arizona softball has been influential not only just in terms of softball, but in terms of women's collegiate athletics. It's one of the more prominent programs that kind of put women's collegiate athletics on the map, right? And you don't want to see that kind of just that get lost a little bit. So I'm hoping that you can kind of start playing with the big dogs from an NIL perspective with softball, and yeah, I feel that there's certainly the potential here at Arizona. There always will be. Caitlin Lowe has done a decent enough job, but maybe she does need a little bit more horses. We'll see. But as we talked about it a little bit yesterday, the contract situation with Caitlin Lowe is now going to be at the forefront of all softball talks, because she has 1 year left on her contract, 1 season left. You can't let her coach with just 1 season left unless you expect her to just be a lame duck type of coach. So we will find what the direction of Arizona softball will be, hopefully very soon here.
Very well said, Damon. I think you really did a good job summarizing the current state of the program. I'll say, and in terms of what Caitlin Lowe's contract looks like, I agree with you. You cannot have a coach like Caitlin Lowe on a lame duck situation, because what does that recruiting look like? We've seen it with. I know their temperaments are quite different, their personalities are different, but we saw we kind of projected out what that could have been like with Adia Barnes, how that could have had awful effects on the program for the next couple of seasons.
Mm-hmm.
I think you do have to make a decision, right? Now, I'm not saying like you should get rid of or should keep. Like, I think you should keep Caitlin Lowe, but I'm saying right or wrong, you got to make a decision before you do have a lame duck coach on your hands, because that is not beneficial for the program. And softball is making me sad right now, Damon. And so I feel like we should do something that is sad, but a little bittersweet in a way. Arizona basketball plays UCLA November 14th in the Intuit Dome in LA as a part of the Hall of Fame series, Damon. Last year they played in Phoenix as a part of the Hall of Fame series. That was the game Arizona lost 57-54 on that awful offensive rebound that never was. And this year things are going to be a little bit different, hopefully, as Arizona travels to LA. And this game will feature this. This is a lot of words pretty much saying that the Hall of Fame series will honor Bill Walton's legacy and life this year with, some, I'm sure, vignettes and things going on surrounding the game. They haven't really gotten into too much detail about it as of just yet. But I did think it was worth the mention that, Bill Walton will be honored on November 14th with the Hall of Fame series game, Damon. I think it was his wife, I believe, but it was certainly a family member that said this was like the trifecta of ways to honor him. You have a basketball game in Los Angeles, in the Intuit Dome specifically, which apparently he was a big supporter of. He loved that the Clippers were trying to get out from under the Lakers there. And then you have Arizona, who he's, his love for Lute Olson as someone who he said was the closest to John Wooden. And then you also have UCLA, and we all know the ties to UCLA and the impact that he's had there. It truly is a trifecta, and I'm excited to watch the presentation of this game, to listen to the stories, to remember Bill Walton, and maybe even shed a grown man tear. Who knows?
Yeah, it's definitely a good time for that game to happen. The program that Bill Walton's son played for at Arizona, a program that he was pretty fond of, and definitely was the announcer for a lot of games for. And then, of course, his alma mater and the school that he was, a college basketball legend at. So, yeah, it is. It will. I'm sure it'll be great. I'm sure it'll be beautiful, and we will be tuned in on that one, Kevin. Some other news and notes. Darian Williams is withdrawing from the draft process after only measuring in at like 6'5" as a power forward. Not shocking, but definitely a good basketball player. I expect him to come back to Texas Tech, but Kevin, you had a conspiracy. Why don't you throw it at us?
Yeah, I have a crazy thought. Darian Williams coming out of the NBA draft, just a little disappointed, needs a shakeup. And there's a team in his home city of Sacramento making some waves. Mike Bibby's out there, Mikey Williams is out there, Shaquille O'Neal is out there. Could Darian Williams potentially return to Sacramento to play for Sacramento State? That's all I'm saying. Just kidding. Just kidding. But on a more serious note, he is the third best still available player in the portal, behind PJ Haggerty and RJ Lewis. And overall, he's the sixth best player in the portal. And like Damon said, the most likely return or most likely spot would be a return to Texas Tech. But schools like Kansas and NC State are also in the running. A lot of NC State
Wade
fans
making noise.
Yeah, a lot of NC State fans do want Darion Williams on their squad. So who knows in regards to that?
NC State is making a kind of a push to kind of get back and be a basketball. I don't want to say powerhouse, but relevant in college basketball again, which they haven't been for quite some time. And I remember when they got Dennis Smith Jr., I thought they were gonna be really good, and it turns out they
Man, I thought DSJ was gonna be the truth. I thought he was gonna be the truth, man.
DSJ?
Yeah. Turns out he had no ligaments in his knees. So
I saw him at the Kyler Murray softball game.
Nice.
He was out there hanging out, playing for Team Red. Ultimately caught the loss. But, yeah, right before we get out of here, Cactus Court.
Steven's saying get him back in the league.
Why not? Cactus Court poll updates, Kevin. We did have our options here. One thing I didn't like was that they made the options on the website different than the options that they like the order of the options they put out on the tweet. And then it's led to some confusion, including under, my own opinions, but I'm a little bit akin to the version where there's a state flag outline, which I believe is 3 on here.
Oh, I thought you wanted 4.
Well, but I also, the more I look at 4, the more I like 4. And although it's loud, I think it kind of plays. And,
I think so too.
4 is catching some momentum here. So I'm hoping for 4 over 2.
I'm hoping for 2 over 4, but I think 4 would be a situation where it grows on me over time, and I end up loving it way more than I ever would have loved 2. I just love the subtlety of 2, and you also have the full logo that says Arizona on the baseline. Not the baseline, but the sideline there. I don't know. It seems like a close race, though. I don't know what the numbers are right now. That was as of, I think, 3 hours ago now. Were those updated poll numbers? So Jay in the chat saying number 2. But yeah, I don't know what the updated poll numbers are because that was 3 hours ago. But right now, me and Damon, our two horses are still in the race, so to speak, and they are the 2 lead horses in the race. 37% to 39%, Damon.
This is from the AZ Athletics Twitter account, correct?
Correct. Yes. Also, if y'all haven't voted, go vote. Make your voice heard and all that other stuff that they say once every 4 years. But this time, about Arizona basketball courts, what really matters?
Well, Kevin, real quick, right before we get out of here, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Fred Harvey, Arizona men's track and field, or actually just he's the overall track and field head coach. Sorry. Will be retiring from Arizona and hanging up the whistle, I guess, if you will.
Hanging up the cleats?
Yeah, absolutely. He worked for the university for 38 years, was the head man for 23 of those. Coached 25 individual national championships, or national champions, 14 Olympians, including 12 personally, and 45 women and 56 men to outdoor All-American honors, as well as 31 women and 28 men to indoor All-American honors. Coached a lot of big time athletes for this university, and was a big time contributor to this athletic department. So, Arizona recent years, man, they've had some of the staples of this athletic department. You look at Dave Rubio for the volleyball team. You look at Mike Kendrea for softball. You look at Fred Harvey for track. There's the list goes on of like really long tenured coaches that kind of built this athletic department into what it is. Ultimately retiring. So
it feels like
losing a big piece of this program, but definitely, a guy that has left a mark on Arizona athletics and will be thought of very fondly.
It does feel like you're entering and obviously we've been in a new era of college sports, but in relation to specifically Arizona athletics, it feels like we've been entering it, like we've been walking through the hallway for a while, and we've reached the doorway. You know what I mean? Like we're fully in the new era of Arizona athletics as a whole, with I think pretty much like with all due respect to everybody else, like Tommy Lloyd's the face of this. It feels like.
Oh, no doubt.
And if it feels like, does Tommy Lloyd want to be the face of Arizona athletics? I don't know. Do you get
I
that?
think Tommy Lloyd wouldn't be the head coach at Arizona if he didn't want to be the face of Arizona athletics.
No, that's valid. I
Because
guess I get the vibe of like Tommy Lloyd just being more of like I'll show up to all the new signings and take nice photos, but I'm not gonna
he's a chill dude.
Yeah.
But I definitely think that like when Tommy comes out in his introductory presser and says, this was the only place I'd ever leave Gonzaga for because I was the head coach in waiting over there, like, to me, that's a guy who, at the end of the day, he's a killer. Even if he doesn't present that, and even if he is a really nice guy, he wants that opportunity. He wants to be at the pinnacle of the sport, and you don't get that without having a little bit of an ego and in a good way. And I think having the confidence and bravado you need to be a high level coach, but also with the addition in Tommy's case of being a down to earth guy, which is the perfect combo. You know what I mean?
I do. One last news and note before everybody here in the chat, before we get up out of here. Big 12 baseball tournament will be coming to Arizona. It will be coming to Phoenix, more specifically at Surprise Stadium. That's a 10,000-seater, almost 11,000-seater. This year it's at Globe Life Field. That's where Arizona is at right now, getting ready for their game on Thursday versus the winner of ASU and BYU. Honestly, the ASU BYU thing, kind of funny because the way the football ended up, and now here you are in the Big 12 tournament in baseball, running it back. Arizona will either face number 5 ASU or number 12 BYU in that tournament. And then also I wanted to mention the opening weekend invitational that Arizona is participating in next year actually takes place at Surprise Stadium, so they'll get a little bit of reps early in the new Big 12 tournament place.
Love to see it. Love to see the Big 12, kind of staking claim in Arizona and making this state Big 12 territory, right? Because, the Big 12 basketball tournament is in Kansas City, much to the chagrin of Arizona fans and ASU and Utah fans who all believe, and in my opinion, rightfully so, that it should be in Vegas or, the Big 12 baseball tourney is in Arlington. They're now moving it to Surprise, which Surprise isn't the greatest option of all the minor league ballparks, but it's still in Arizona and it's still a good option. I think we're going to be happy with it. So Arizona is the quintessential baseball state. So I think it makes sense to have it here. And yeah, it's just Arizona taking over the Big 12, Kevin. Love to see it. Love to see it at every turn. That's going to do it for us today. Like I said, jam-packed show.
Just a light hour and a half.
Extra long in the off season, just because your boys want to get some takes off. That's what the AZ Wildcats podcast is all about. I am Damon Dog. He is Kevo Posts. It's KVOPOSTS. You can follow us on our regular account, our main account at PHNX_Wildcats. And of course, our main hub of all PHNX sports at PHNX_sports on Twitter or X.com, the everything app. But
that was crazy.
we're gonna get out of here on that one.
Oh, whoa! We do have a super chat.
We do have a super chat from
AZ Catch G. Shout out. What the hell's going on with the chat today? What is going on with that? Anyway, AZ Catch G, we see your super chat. Thank you for your super chat. Who says, I like 3 state outline is cool.
Yep.
I like Justin Spears' idea of rotating them for rivalry games. Like, have the state outline be the one you do when you face ASU.
I do not believe we have the
state
facilities for that, big man.
I know. But we're in the off season. Let me dream.
Well,
wow.
I do.
I don't think Chad heard that one, but our guy from Sons and Merck, SPG, Stephen Frigio and Gardner is just letting Damon have it right now. I'll say that much. Yeah. Wow. Can we get out of here before this goes truly off the rails?
Goes more off the rails?
Yeah.
We better, Kevin. And like I said, follow me at Damon Dog. Follow him at Kevo Posts. Of course, we will be back on a Wednesday at 12 p.m. Maybe another guest. Who knows? You'll just have to tune in and find out. Keep it locked and loaded on all those social accounts. We'll be back tomorrow. Like I said, until then, peace out. Bear down.
And go Cats.
We all silly like the mayor.